The reason that people use drugs or drink and the reason why people meditate is very similar, though neither group, or perhaps there are plenty of people who use both or do both, might think of it in this way, but it's a very similar reason. It is to go beyond mind. If you're getting drunk or getting high, you're going below mind, descending below mind. You're taking the focus, you're allowing your focus to be taken from you by narcotics or alcohol and to be sedated below the level of conscious awareness, full conscious awareness in the mind and of the mind. People meditate to transcend the mind, to go beyond the mind, to be absorbed into something higher, and something which allows oneself to transcend the regular flow of the mind and the regular focus that lies within the regular flow of mind. When we get bored, that's why a lot of people drink and use drugs, isn't it? Boredom, or perhaps grief, sadness, or perhaps, there might be social cues. There might be social factors that kind of influence one. But a lot of the time, it's because mind's giving you problems. You're bored, or you're sad, or you're stuck in a dependency loop, which kind of leads to sadness, which makes you want to use more, drink more, and it's an endless cycle. But a lot of the reasons why people use or drink is because the mind is giving them problems. Our conscious awareness is fixed in the mind, and we are observing the mind and present in the mind as it goes through its rotation of similar thoughts after similar thoughts after similar thoughts. Thoughts that either we get tired of or we just don't enjoy at all. And it's usually because that loop is very unpleasant. If we don't allow our mind to take in new information, whether there be information or interactions or experiences in the world, it just recycles the same old information again and again and again. It's kind of like, it's kind of like human centipede, if you get my meaning, where the nutrition or the value of the thoughts being fed back into yourself becomes less and less until the thoughts just become your inner environment, and it's almost like a prison. You can't escape those thoughts because you're not taking in new information. You're not taking in new experiences. And you might not think that you might be stuck in a situation like this, but I think a lot of people are at different points in their life, whether it's same old jobs, same experiences, same conversations, and same interactions and information at a job. It just gets recycled and it feels like the same old thing. Then it begins to feel like a cell, and we get stuck as our focus is within our conscious awareness, and our focus is in the same mental landscape, and it begins to feel like a prison that people want to escape from. But the thing about the mind is that we are not the mind, and how yogis and seers would kind of posit this to a regular person is, how you crave deep sleep. You crave that relief and that recuperation. And how do we recuperate in deep sleep when we can't even remember it? And how do we crave deep sleep if we can't remember it? And this craving isn't for any kind of experience, because we don't remember anything in that experience, and we're not experiencing anything. So why do we crave that? Why do we crave a place where there is no mind? So there is no memory. It is because our being wants to be absorbed in something that is beyond itself. And that's where it also recuperates. We naturally have a craving to go to that place that is beyond ourselves. And it is naturally a place where our brain recuperates. When we enter deep sleep, we can think of it as tuning into the frequency of the source, of God, and our soul is kind of resting in God, and our mind, and so our soul is resting there. Our mind is the most turned off it can get, but there's something that our soul brings back from that place, and it leaves a pleasant feeling in the mind. And that kind of shows that we aren't really the mind. The mind is attached to us, but the absence of the mind is not unpleasant. In fact, it is pleasant. as it is pleasant once you truly are able to get those moments when you turn off the mind in meditation, or when you truly get that high where your focus is taken out of your hands, your conscious awareness is taken out of your hands, and you're just riding that high or riding that inebriated state. And we crave that too, because our mind is turned off, but is descended below the regular conscious awareness. Instead of transcended, it's descended. We seek these feelings naturally, but we don't always seek them in the correct sources or in the correct ways and through the correct means. And because of that, we can cause ourselves a lot of trouble. But we have to be willing to understand that to have the same experiences, to not learn, to not try to read, to try to understand things, watch informative videos, watch spiritual talks, learn spiritual things, learn intellectual things. When we're learning, we're placing our focus, our conscious awareness, still something that's a little bit above the mind. It might not be transcended to where we're completely resting in God, like the best forms of meditation, or the forms of meditation where we completely turn off our mind and enter another state that's above mind. It may not quite be that, but when we're learning, we're taking the focus of our conscious awareness and we're placing it on something and analyzing something new and taking in new information. The brain behaves differently when it's learning things. It connects, the synapses connect in various ways that is pleasant. We're transcending that loop that we're usually stuck in with the same old information, same old experiences. We're transcending that a little bit through the impulse of the intellect. And since we're placing our conscious awareness and our focus where that conscious awareness is on intellectual pursuits or learning something, taking in new information, then our brain is naturally getting closer to transcending our current state, the state that we are in, and that feels pleasant. It should feel like a pleasant experience. If you're not learning something that interests you, it might seem unpleasant because you're forcing yourself, but then really you're just getting stuck in those loops again, and then you're not focused. Your focus is still trapped in the mind. Your focus and your conscious awareness is still trapped in the mind. It is not absorbed in what you're learning, what you're taking in. But if you're not learning something new and you haven't really found like a subject or a particular book that you like, keep looking, because this is placing the focus of your conscious awareness a little bit out of the mind and closer to transcending in that place of rest and that place of recuperation and that place of absorption in God, getting closer to that than just being stuck in the mind loop. So always learn, always take in new information, and realize that when you drink or do drugs or do something like that just to get some kind of high or kind of deaden ourselves, some kind of inebriation, you're descending below. And that drags you kind of away from transcendence. If the goal of the spiritual path is to transcend, we shouldn't want to be dragged away from, descended below the usual conscious awareness of the mind. We shouldn't want to descend below, we should want to transcend. And if we allow our frequency, our consciousness, or the vibration that is us, if we're always descending below rather than transcending, then the spiritual path will become more and more difficult, and we won't be able to grasp vaster topics, and we won't be able to touch God or touch that transcendence beyond ourself that we naturally want to be absorbed in. We just look for it in the wrong places. So don't seek to descend below the usual conscious awareness of the mind, even if it's troubling you. Seek to transcend. At least if you're not meditating, if you're not engaged in puja or prayer or communion with God in some way, and you're not focusing on God, if you're not doing that, learn something new. Your brain will thank you, and you're getting a little bit closer to transcendence. Learn, learn, learn. That helps your brain. That's wonderful for your brain. It's a long path to find oneself on any spiritual path. And there's going to be hiccups, and there's going to be times when you feel like you've become stagnant, when everything that you're doing is stale and it doesn't feel new anymore. And that's when you need to change things up a little bit. Change up your puja, your worship a little bit. Do something that you learned that you haven't done on your spiritual path before. You don't necessarily have to change your gods or anything like that, or your spirits or how you understand God. But whatever path that you're on, seek other sources of information that has more information on whatever path you're on. Other books on Vedanta, if you're into Vedanta. Other books on whatever God, if you're a Norse pagan. Look for other books on Odin and Thor and Freyr. Look for other books. Take in new information and expand the ways in which you worship and connect to the gods, the spirit, or God. If you believe in just this one singular formless God, look into new information and philosophy and understanding that aligns with your preference. You don't have to go outside of your preference to learn something new. In fact, you can expand the spiritual path that you're on and what you are interested in by just adding more information. If you're not willing to go outside of whatever path that you're on, particular path or set of interests, then just more. Take in new information. Your brain will thank you, and you're getting closer to God. Even if it's not transcendence, it's higher up. It's higher up than descension of any kind. And when we focus on negative things, when we're constantly focusing on the things that make us depressed, or we're pessimistic, or we're really putting ourselves down, or we're even being put down, or in a negative environment, most of the time we're doing it to ourselves. But there's plenty of times when we're not doing it to ourselves. But that is also kind of making us descend. So seek to get out of that environment or improve your environment, or don't torture yourself. So torturing yourself is sending you away from transcendence. It's isolating your experience to a smaller and smaller and a darker and darker box that we naturally don't want to be in. And you shouldn't have to be in that box. So don't do that to yourself if you can help it at all. If you can't, you gotta learn better ways of thinking, better ways of being, and ways that you can get out of that dark little place that can get very painful when we're trapped there for long periods of time. Even if you don't have a mental illness or disorder of any kind, we all feel very confined and isolated sometimes and stuck in these little loops. Free yourself from that box. Learn. I would recommend meditate, but learn. And don't try to descend below the level of conscious awareness. Don't allow your focus to be taken away from you in the form of substances or alcohol. Place the focus of your conscious mind a little bit higher, a little bit grander. Prayer is wonderful. Puja is wonderful. Meditation is great. These are just my general thoughts. I hope that this was an interesting video. If you like this video, I'll hit that thumbs up down. It really helps out the channel. Feel free to leave it a heart if this is on TikTok. Feel free to share this wherever you like, and feel free to leave a comment because I love hearing from you guys. I try to respond to every comment. Thank you very much for watching. Jai Ma, and I hope all of you have a wonderful day.